Good evening and welcome to the Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. We'll be joined by our Week in Review guests in just a moment, but first, some of today's top stories. More migrants arrive at Union Station from the Texas border this afternoon as U.S. Senator Dick Durbin toured a local Salvation Army shelter. Hundreds have come here this week, mainly from Venezuela. In Durbin, Mayor Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker have vowed to help settle the individuals and families arriving, but they also criticized Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott for sending them on buses to Union Station in Chicago. Durbin says the city has the infrastructure to help the new arrivals with basic needs.
We don't know what the governor of Texas is going to do next. We don't know what he's going to dump on a bus and send here to dump in the city of Chicago. But we've got to be ready to do our best to help these people. It means making sure that they have the basics when they arrive here for a few days and that they transition out of here.
Chicago police say a 17-year-old Chicago public school student was shot and killed this afternoon. It happened not far from Kenwood Academy on the 1600 block of East 50th Place. Police say no one else was injured in the shooting, but that they do not yet have a suspect in custody.
Our victim, a male, 17 years of age, was involved in an altercation with occupants of a vehicle. This vehicle then chased our victim into a parking lot where at least two occupants of that vehicle exited and began firing upon the victim.
And public safety officials are gearing up for this weekend's celebrations around Mexican Independence Day. This year marks the first official Mexican Independence Day parade in Chicago's Little Village since 2019. Officials say historically as many as 500,000 people have come to watch the parade and participate in festivities, but they can also morph into loud all-night events that can clog up traffic. Chicago police officers are urging everyone to celebrate peacefully and stay vigilant if they see any unlawful behavior.
We will have more officers on patrol, and our caravan task force will be out monitoring activity across the city. We want this weekend to be one filled with celebration, as it should be.
And now on to the Week in Review. Joining us are Mike Mulligan, co-host of the Mully and Haw Show on 670 The Score, Craig Dellamore, political editor at WBBM News Radio, A.D. Quigg, political reporter for the Chicago Tribune, and Shia Kappas, who covers Illinois politics at Politico. Lots to talk about this week. Mully, I'll start with you. Ted Phillips, the president of the Bears, George McCaskey, the owner, they presented their Dome Stadium plans for an Arlington Heights mega facility to residents last night. Do you like what you heard from them?
Yeah, I thought they did very well, and I think it was pretty well received. And I've always felt, Paris, that this is sort of a fait accompli, that the Bears have more or less already moved to Arlington Heights. I'd be surprised if it didn't go through at this point. I know they're being very careful about what they say. In order to build the Dome Stadium, they're going to need a lot of public help. And I would, just talking to different people, the theory seems to be that there won't be a dome if they don't get the public help. But they will build the building. They will build a stadium, but it wouldn't be a dome, which would mean no Super Bowl and no NCAA playoffs, football playoffs, or basketball playoffs, NCAA tournament.
Well, so you're saying they're going to use that as leverage? Because it would seem like the entire point here is to build this facility they could use for all these other purposes.
I think they have no leverage. I don't think there's any leverage that they can use. So I think that the only thing they can say is that they're going to buy the land, and if they get the help that they need, and that's infrastructure help as much as anything, they claim that they will build the entire structure themselves. But if they have to deal with all the infrastructure and everything else, I think a lot of the public space, a lot of the other stuff that they are offering or talking about, and again, that's why they use the word if every time you turn around, if this, if that, I think that they'll end up, I don't think they're not building a stadium out there. I think they would end up building an open air building and then using the money that they were going to put in the dome. And the dome, you got to keep it going year round. You got to heat it. You got to do a lot with it. They would use that on infrastructure and kind of split the cost. This is just an educated guess.
So bear weather might not be a thing of the past if this is indeed what happens. Shia Kappas, the Bears do want some public help for what they say is infrastructure, roads, sewers around the neighborhood they're going to build with some of the mixed-use developments. Do you think there will be a political appetite to approve that?
It seems like so far no, but I keep wondering if those high-end ticket holders, the same top CEOs across the city, are going to be willing to throw in a lot of money, knowing that they could get, you know, a premier box. They could leverage it by donating a lot and getting a lot back, which a lot of places have done. So I feel like that's going to be the next step to see what local people will do to donate.
Full disclosure, I'm a Bears season ticket holder.
Oh.
And we had the personal seat license we had to pay for the renovated Soldier Field, and I'm just wondering what they're going to do about those PSLs in a new stadium. So that remains to be seen. I don't think the Bears are even at that point yet. Let's listen to Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who says she'll continue to try to persuade the Bears to stay in Chicago.
We're going to continue our discussions. We're going to continue our discussions excuse me, with the league. But as you know, I'm somebody who likes to plan. So we've got Plan B, Plan C, and others in the works as well if the Bears decide that they're going to abandon the city of Chicago. I hope they don't, and we're going to keep fighting that fight as long as we possibly can.
Craig Dellamore, whether Arlington Heights pans out or not, I just don't think Soldier Field has much of a future as the home of the Bears, maybe somewhere else in the area. But Plan A is obviously to keep the Bears. Does the mayor have any other rabbit that she can pull out of her hat to keep them?
I don't really think so. And in fact, you can tell by the way the mayor's statements have been going lately, where the half of the statement where she says, we really hope to keep the Bears, has been getting shorter and shorter. And the part where she talks about how much of a future there is on the museum campus without the Bears gets longer and longer and more descriptive. So I think they're kind of coming to the realization that unless something really bad happens in Arlington Heights, that the Bears are pretty much gone. So they're looking to soccer. They're looking to other kinds of big events. There have been more concerts there. So I think that that campus is going to have to look for a future without a football team. And yeah, there's talk about bringing another football team in. I think the reality
never gonna happen.
is, exactly.
It wouldn't be allowed by league rules. The Bears could reject it. Why would they welcome, like, the Jaguars to Chicago? It's never going to happen.
No, that's a pipe dream. But, Mully, you know, there's a lot of stuff in flux for the Bears, not just on the football field, but team president Ted Phillips announces he's going to retire at the end of the year. And then you've got the whole situation with ownership. Mrs. McCaskey, there were some reports that her health wasn't in the best situation. So how does that play into their future plans?
Yeah, I think all of that is very interesting. I got to tell you, I have not heard this, but it would be my belief that PSLs and boxes and all that, suites, that is money that they're using in their minds to help with that building. If they're not seeking any outside money to build a dome, that money is in their mind going into the dome they're building, not going into the outside area. But you know, you hear all sorts of different things. You would think the Bears are worth, what, $4 billion? All you got to do is find the right bank and just finance it. It's like buying a home, your value. But you hear different stories. They may be looking for other partners, and they certainly have different ideas for how big this project will be. And the Bears are, you know, for years, they portrayed themselves as the mom and pop shop because that's their business. Their business is just that. It's not like the Rooney family that also owned racetracks and
this is the Steelers owners.
Yes, the Steelers owners. Of the families that own that still have a share of various football teams, the McCaskey standalone is one whose only business is football.
There's a lot to follow here over the next few months, and they've said that they want to maybe close on this before the end of the year. Let's move on to some other news. Here's Alderwoman Susan Sadlowski-Garza explaining her decision not to seek re-election while she was here on Chicago Tonight earlier this week.
I've spent my entire life giving back to people in the 10th Ward, 32 years to be exact, as a counselor, an educator, and as an alderwoman. And it's time for me to give back to my family and my friends and myself, quite frankly.
All right, A.D. Quigg, so this week we hear Alderwoman Garza, Alderman Brookins joining the chorus of longtime alderpeople that are hanging it up. This is more than a fifth of city council that's going to turn over. And by the way, we haven't even had elections yet. Is there something in the water here?
It could be. I mean, think about how many people on the lakefront alone who are retiring. But no, it is a real phenomenon happening at City Council in a way that it's not happening in other bodies. This is not happening in the General Assembly. This is not really happening at the Cook County Board. This is something special about the Chicago City Council. We've got 14 folks that probably a year or so ago we thought would run again, who aren't for one reason or another. 8 retiring at the end of the term, 3 running for mayor, 1 leaving for another job, 2 others leaving in recent months, 1 going to jail, 1 going to the private sector. It's just a ton of turnover. And the mayor even said this week she's expecting more. There's something going on.
1 going to jail, 1 going to the private sector. Those are 2 very different routes that some of these soon-to-be former aldermen are taking. But A.D. Quigg, does some of this have to do with the mayor? A lot of folks like Alderwoman Garza have complained that she's hard to work with. She rubs people the wrong way.
It's a lot of different things. And no alderman would say their first reason for wanting to leave is the mayor. A lot of them have said, I've been doing this a long time. I want to spend time with family. The pandemic was particularly hard. It kept me away from my favorite things, which is interacting with constituents and not having to sit in, as Alderman Brookins called it, long, boring meetings. But yes, when I've spoken with aldermen who are leaving, they have either straight up said or alluded to that it has been hard to work in this council, in part because of the way Mayor Lori Lightfoot runs things. And the mayor said this week, you know, take me or leave me, basically. I'm 60 years old and I'm not going to change. And I came to council to shake it up, and I have.
Craig Dellamore, and the point here is to shake it up. I mean, we're so used to folks that stay in office for life. They leave by the pine box or the jury box or whatever the other box
or the ballot box.
The ballot box, as Ed Burke said. So maybe this is a good thing to constantly refresh and get new blood in there.
You know, some of us have been talking about that over the last couple of weeks. That, you know, remember all that talk about the rubber stamp city council that we've had from mayor year after year, mayor after mayor. Well, this is a more independent city council, and this is what it looks like. You know, the old chant, this is what democracy looks like. It is, and it's sloppy sometimes. And even some of the people who complain about the mayor have acknowledged that even the atmosphere among themselves, with each other, has been harsh at times. The remapping fight was as bitter as I've ever seen it, and I've gone through a few of these. It just isn't the same. But that is what happens when you finally don't have all of the same kind of people running. And you're going to see it change even more when you get some of that new blood in, replacing this big phalanx of aldermen leaving.
Well, the point was made earlier today on BEZ by reporter Alex Nitkin that for the first time, City Council has actually had to legislate. They're a legislative body, which is something we're not used to. In the past, they kind of just ruled over their little fiefdoms while the legislation came from the mayor, and they usually rubber stamped it. So it is different times. It's very interesting. Shia Capos, Chuy Garcia, he made some news this week saying that he was going to make a big announcement at City Hall, and everyone wondered, oh, what could this be? But it turned out he's endorsing a few alderpeople in certain districts. Is he going to get in this race for mayor?
In the mayor's race?
Yeah.
I think we still don't know. He came in this week. We all wondered, big announcement, what it would be, and he was there to endorse a slate of candidates for city council. But Congressman Garcia is very measured and doesn't say what he doesn't want to say. And so when he was asked about whether he wanted to run for mayor, he kind of talked at length about how he was thinking about it, why he hasn't decided yet. And the fact that he talked about it at length, I think is very interesting. Maybe he's leveraging to get more support for those candidates. Maybe he really will run. Everybody's kind of waiting, because if he were to run, that would really shake up the mayor's race.
All right, well, something that has shaken up a race in Texas and perhaps will shake up the mayor's race is this issue of migrants. Mayor Lightfoot castigated Texas Governor Greg Abbott for refusing to provide information on the migrants he is sending to the city.
This is entirely within the knowledge of the Texas governor, who he's putting on buses, when they're coming, what their specific conditions and needs are. So the same thing he's saying, hey, I need more help, well, so do we. He's treating these human beings like freight.
And more came on a bus today. A.D. Quigg, the majority of them are from Venezuela, escaping some of the problems in that country. So is the mayor right here? Is Greg Abbott not coordinating? Greg Abbott or Tina Sfondelis in the Sun-Times said no one from the governor's office here called the governor's office there, and so they're kind of pointing fingers at each other. What's going on?
Yeah, the mayor said the same thing. I asked her on Tuesday, I think, have you or anyone in your office reached out to Abbott's office directly to say what's going on? And she basically said, no, I've been making these public pronouncements, but it would be very easy for him to pick up the phone and call or email me just to give us a sense of what the needs are of these people coming here. There have been reports of 30-hour-long bus rides with few breaks, no food, no water. We're not sure entirely which families belong to whom, when they'll arrive, in what state they'll arrive, what kind of health care they might need. And the city and county have been able to provide that so far. But like you said, we're getting dozens and dozens of people every day. I think it's been thousands to New York and DC, and it takes a lot of coordination to take care of these people and also help them reunite with their families. But Paris, I think you said earlier today, this is politically beneficial to both of them, for Governor Abbott looking tough on immigration and for the mayor portraying Chicago as a welcoming city.
Certainly politics heavily involved in the decision. It is unfortunate to have folks use as political pawns like this, as it seems to be happening. Let's move over to the governor's race here. I'll throw this out to anybody. Has anyone gotten these fake newspapers in the mail that they purport to be a newspaper, but they're really thinly veiled campaign literature for Republican candidates? Anyone received any of those? Here's a picture of one of them.
Thankfully, no.
They don't send them to Chicago.
They do. I got it in my. I live in Chicago. I got one in my. It was called the Chicago City War. But as I understand, Dan Proft, who is a longtime figure in conservative politics, taking a lot of money from Dick Uihlein to run ads on behalf of Darren Bailey. Is he the person behind this?
Yes,
It
pretty
appears
much.
so. Yeah.
Yes.
Is this?
And I don't think he denies it.
No, he hasn't denied it.
And
You're
really,
right.
these are just campaign mailers. That they're just more sophisticated, more stylish campaign mailers like you would be getting anyway. But these are quite inventive, and they're meant to basically scare people. A lot of what they do is scare people.
Well, they're made to look like a community newspaper, so that you take at face value what's being said in them. When a lot of these are coming from libertarian-sided websites and are just being repurposed, and a lot of them are actually essentially pro-Bailey ads.
Right. No,
it's confusing people, though, because they're putting out misinformation about the Safety Act, and so people are wondering, is it true? Like, is it true, or are criminals going to be let out free without bail? You know, there's a lot of misinformation being put out and by the right, and that's concerning. That's what Governor Pritzker is talking about his concern when he criticized it earlier this week.
And I think that the confusion is the point here. It's meant so that people think that this is just real news, where this is, I think we could say, the very definition of fake news. This is campaign literature.
Totally.
Let's also talk about some other elements of the governor's race. Craig, Bailey and Pritzker kind of jousted over their public safety plans this week. What did they say?
Well, on Bailey's side, he basically said the problem with public safety in Illinois is the Cook County State's Attorney, the mayor of Chicago, and Governor Pritzker. He didn't really give any other plans except to say, we'll take the handcuffs off the police. No actual plans were outlined there, and really just saying that the Safety Act, again, that's become the boogeyman of this campaign, that all of a sudden they're going to open the doors of the prisons on January 1st and let all the murderers out, which obviously isn't true. And but that is the message that they're selling. And of course, for the governor, he is saying the guy who voted against all of the money that we wanted to spend, the extra money, billions on public safety, well, Bailey voted against that budget. And Bailey says, hey, the budget's one big document and nobody reads all of it. So, it's more political positioning, but really you're not seeing any solid plans about how Bailey would change things other than let the police be the police.
Right, and the Safety Act, that's that whole issue of ending cash bail for all but the most violent of offenses. AD, I wanted to get to this story that you wrote this week. This is a great story. You looked at the salaries of folks working at the Obama Presidential Center. They're pretty good jobs with good pay. What did you find?
So actually a reader had reached out after I did a story about the Obama Foundation's 2021 filings, which basically says all the salaries of people working at the foundation. And she said, you should compare these to some of what's being earned at other museums and foundations in Chicago. So I went digging, and I basically found that folks at the Obama Foundation, top earners, the Obama Foundation, are out earning pretty much most foundations and museums in Chicago and almost every other modern presidential foundation. And
it has to be said that at some point they're going to break ground on an actual building here, but what exactly are they doing? Because there is no center yet.
Right, no center yet. It is currently being built. I think we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the groundbreaking of the center. But the foundation has existed since 2017. They put on other programming. They have a scholarship program, a Voyager program, a lot of leadership development programs. President Obama started this foundation, he said, to kind of develop the next generation of civic leaders. And then, of course, you need people curating the museum, finding the artifacts. Raising money is also really, really important. They set a pretty ambitious $1.3 billion fundraising goal for the near future. And that takes people with connections. And a lot of those people with connections used to work in the Obama administration. And they cost a lot.
And they cost a lot if they're good at that job. All right, let's move back to the Bears, Mike Mulligan. At least for the time being, they're going to be playing at Soldier Field. What is a realistic expectation for Justin Fields this year and for the team overall?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think one that will begin to unfold on Sunday. I don't have the highest expectations. You know, Vegas set the line at 6.5 wins, and then it dropped to like 5.5 wins. And again, Vegas doesn't care who wins or loses. They're playing the middle, so they want to get enough people thinking both ways. The Bears aren't very popular nationally. There isn't like a real following behind them. They have a shocking 64% of their roster are new players. There's a 53-man roster. 15 are rookies. They had no first-round pick. They had only 3 picks in the first 150 players taken. So they got a lot of guys that they don't. I wouldn't say that talent-wise they match the rest of the NFL, but they seem like they're organized. And you know, it's a very absurd bar to have, but I think they will not commit a ton of penalties before the ball is snapped, which we got used to seeing in the past administration. So they might not have the same amount of talent. They got this hits principle. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to see how this goes. Unfortunately, their first 2 opponents are pretty tough. But I think Justin Fields shows a lot of moxie. He shows a lot of improvement. He's been in rhythm. He's gotten rid of the ball a little bit better. He's got to move fast because he doesn't have a lot of protection or weapons. Other than that, it should be a great year.
Well, and it seems like the offense is going to be more tailored to him this year as opposed to last year, so that'll be fun to watch. Also kind of fun to watch in the last few days, the White Sox, without manager Tony La Russa, that has some kind of health issue. First of all, what's the situation with La Russa?
Well, he supposedly is going to meet them on Sunday in Oakland because Dave Stewart is having his number 34 retired, and Dave, of course, was the manager of Big Stu back in the day. So it'll be interesting. He wants to rejoin the team next week, and I'd be very curious to know who makes that call, because I'd say that most observers would be hesitant about getting Tony back. They've been playing 700 baseball without him. They're a 500 team. They've been 500 25 times this year, and they've been playing 700 baseball since Tony has been out with his heart issue.
And they're only a game and a half back right now. I mean, is there a connection here between the Sox playing better and what's the name of the bench coach kind of taking over?
Miguel Cairo.
Miguel Cairo.
Yes. There may well be. I think it's hard not to make that connection. And, you know, you wish Tony well. And he is a 77-year-old man. And I don't think age should matter, but maybe it does with health issues, right? So I think you have to be aware of that. And certainly, yeah, they played much better. Now, they're 2 games over 500. They're only a game and a half out. They play in the worst division in baseball. Any other division, they'd be 15 games back.
But once October starts, anything's possible. Molly, we only have a few seconds left. Chicago Sky could not defend their crown. What happened last night?
Well, I mean, they kind of stopped playing. I mean, they gave up a 19-0 run to end the game. They were up 10 in the fourth quarter. It's a real pity, and I'd hate to think. I don't know what Candace Parker's plans are, but she's, a great Chicagoan, came back here, won a title. You would hope that that's not the way that she goes out. They had the last two games, they just lost to a team that was big and kind of mucked it up on them, hit their shots in the first game. But, a 19-0 run to close a game, that's ugly.
All right. Well, thankfully, none of you mucked this up. This was a great panel, but we're out of time. So our thanks to Mike Mulligan, Craig Dellamore, A.D. Quigg, and Shia Kappas. And that is our show for this Friday night. Don't forget you can get Chicago Tonight and the Week in Review streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. And be sure to join us tomorrow night at 6 for Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, and then immediately after that, Chicago Tonight Black Voices at 6:30. And then, of course, we're back at 7 o'clock all next week. And now for the Week in Review, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and enjoy this wonderful weekend.